You're listening to the Great Canadian Aftermarket Podcast. Welcome to this special episode of My First Car, a new miniseries.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Ross. Now, over the last 6 months or so, we've been bringing you stories and podcasts from literally around the world about issues and news that affects the automotive aftermarket here in Canada. Now, we've certainly been hard at work to make sure that we bring you a good package every week. But as we hit the dog days of summer, we thought we'd kind of take a little bit of a step back, give everybody a bit of a rest, and bring you something a little lighter over the summer months. And so what you might not know is that as we've been doing our interviews and having our guests on board, we've often been asking them about their first car. Now, for a lot of our guests, that had some profound impact on their automotive aftermarket careers that followed. And I suppose I'm no different. Well, I guess I should start. I mean, my first car is not quite a simple story for me. Good thing I came prepared. Now, growing up, we always had at least one Volkswagen Beetle in the driveway. So it was usually a Beetle and something else. Now, the first car that I think ever wheeled around was probably the Beetle. An easy transmission to learn to drive stick on, that's for sure. But being not of legal age to be driving, it was, strictly parking lots, etc., and maybe the occasional sneak around the block. So the first car that I actually drove regularly was a 72 Ford Maverick, which was mostly my mom's car. But like I think a lot of folks, they drove them to work, came back, and then maybe not like a lot of folks, for my sister and I, that car was in the driveway for use, as long as we were prepared to put a little bit of gas in it. So I'm very fortunate, that way. That's kind of where the good fortune ends, though, because this is a Ford Maverick, not the Ford Maverick that has just recently been introduced, which seems very cool. A 72 Ford Maverick like this, beige, inside and out, in color, in personality, in performance, with the straight six. And it was actually a handful just to drive at regular speeds. I do recall having a girlfriend in the car one time hitting a little bump on a country road and finding ourselves swapped ends and just missing the ditch on the other side. So that was kind of it. It also had other amazing features like ability to just stop on the highway. You'd be driving along and then it would just cut out. You'd coast down to the side of the road, crank it a few times, and there it would go again. The other optional accessory, I'll call it, was the ever-present Kleenex box on the passenger wheel well. It was there to cover a hole. It was fine until the middle of winter when you'd be driving over a slush-laden road and a geyser of slush would come streaming up between the passenger's legs. Not a great car at all, but it is part of our history. The next quote-unquote first car that I drove, again, this was something that I had a hand in the decision-making because I'd been working as a courier. And one of the vehicles that they had for the long distance guys, long distance, based out of Toronto, but doing the longer runs instead of just the city runs, was a Volkswagen Rabbit diesel. I thought it was a great car, told my dad this when it came time for him to finally get rid of the Beetle that he had been driving since 1970. So this would have been about 1984. Yeah, exactly. I said, you know what, take a look at the new Volkswagens, take a look at the diesel. There was a diesel Jetta that was on the market, a couple of years old, 1980 diesel Jetta. Again, this is not the one, but it was exactly this. That green color, 52 horsepower, I think, on the diesel. And we drove that thing literally into the ground. Now, after my my father passed, I still drove it. So it was, I think, 20 years old by the time it finally died, and was actually a great car. Now, this car has a good connection to what we'll actually get to in a minute, which was the first car I actually laid my own money down on. So after my dad passed, I took over this vehicle, was, on paper the owner and all that kind of stuff. Did a lot of work to keep it going. I remember replacing the injection pump one time. That was a smelly, messy job, but also learned an awful lot about tuning the timing on the injection to get a little bit more oomph out of it. Not a lot, just a little. Owning and driving this vehicle probably kept me my license. If I'd had something through those years with a lot more horsepower, a lot more kind of terminal speed, I'm pretty sure I would have had more conversations with the police. But I used to joke that getting it up to about 140 kilometers an hour on the highway wasn't an easy task, and that anytime if there were a radar station that would clock me, they'd see me zipping past in this thing, shake their heads, bang their radar gun, and think there's no way, there's something wrong with this gun. Nonetheless, this car stood me through a lot of years. I think there was about 250,000 kilometers when I finally snapped a half shaft on it. Snapped that half shaft, leaving work one day, parked it in the back 9, and then it was winter, immediately got buried by the snow plow, and it stayed there till spring, under about 20 feet of snow. I had replaced the engine once already. I had a young daughter at home. And when that thing emerged from the glacier in the springtime, the message was pretty clear. There is no way you're taking our baby daughter in that old thing. So that was it done days. But it did serve its purpose as a tow vehicle for what was technically the first vehicle that I actually laid my money down on. Now, that $4,500 for this. I don't know if you can see it, a little bit of reflections, and I apologize for that. 1985 Honda Civic race car was actually the first car that I owned, put my own money down, and raced for one season in the Honda Michelin Challenge Series. And that, I was under that hood constantly, setting valves, had the cylinder head off, certainly at least one time that I can remember, all manner of things. Of course, did about 1,000 brake jobs on it. And for a lot of what I learned, was just in the driveway and with a shop manual and figuring it out. Now, I by that point, I obviously been around cars and helped my dad bring engines in and out of the Beetles, as a kid. I tightened up wheel nuts, lug nuts on race cars since I was 5 or 6. So, it was kind of natural, right? I will say that the automotive aftermarket service community is very fortunate that I didn't become a technician. Didn't really have the patience for it, and so here I am doing it, this side of it, which I still love it. I don't work on cars anymore, but I will never forget that experience with the terrible Ford Maverick, that real workhorse of a diesel Jetta that I used to tow my race car. Think about that. I remember pulling out of Mosport, which is on the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park it is now, and somebody saying, hey, I didn't think you could do that with one of those. I, of course, called back to them, well, you can't. Well, I guess you can. Anyway, those are my firsts for cars. Certainly, I never forget about them. They certainly shaped my view of the aftermarket, and more than anything else, really gave me a good grounding, good foundation for having a tremendous amount of respect for the automotive technicians who work on these vehicles every day and keep them running and keep us safe. Anyway, as I mentioned, over the coming weeks, there's going to be a number of My First Car episodes, and we hope you enjoy them. Take care, everyone. Be safe, be strong. And you never know, we might check in a little bit more over the summer as needs be. All right. Take care, everyone. Be safe, be well.